ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਏਸ਼ੀਆ ਟੈਲੀਵਿਜ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੰਜੀਵ ਤਵਨ ਦਾ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਨਮਸਕਾਰ, ਆਦਾਬ। ਦੋਸਤੋ, ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਡਿਬੇਟਸ ਕਰਾਈਆਂ, ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਰੂਬਰੂ ਕਰਾਇਆ ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬ੍ਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਦੀ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਸੀ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਜਾਰਡਨ ਬੋਸਵਾਲ ਹੀ ਮਿਸ ਦੈਟ ਡਿਬੇਟ। ਦਾ ਰੀਜ਼ਨ ਇਹ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਜਗਮੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਸਨ ਉਹ ਆਏ ਹੋਏ ਸਨ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੇਜਰ ਅਨਾਊਂਸਮੈਂਟਸ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ ਸੀ। ਸੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੀਗੇ Jordan ਦੇ ਲਈ ਉਹ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਸਟੈਂਡ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ। So he has come and he's going to discuss those issues. Jordan, welcome at Prime Asia Television.
Thank you. Satelite call. May Jordan Boswell, NDP Umidwar, Brampton Centre. And thank you, Sanjeev, for having me. I was very sad to miss the debate a couple of weeks ago because of the announcement with Jagmeet Singh, but looking forward to the conversation today.
Okay, so I'll first start with the straight question, which was an important question in our debate. And that is, if NDP comes to power, will you cancel your arms deal with Saudi Arabia or not?
Absolutely. So the Saudi arms deal has been something that our leader Jagmeet Singh and the NDP has been very vocal against. As a country, Canada should not be selling weapons to countries and regimes that are committing human rights atrocities to their people. We should be immediately ending that deal with Saudi Arabia. We've called on the Liberal government to do it, but they've refused to. It's an issue that we are very passionate about, the human rights protection for the innocent people in Saudi Arabia. We need to be ending that arms deal.
Jordan, the thing is that suppose you cancel that deal. When government-to-government deals they are done, and if a new political party comes into power and it changes those deals, then it brings down the credibility of the country. That means the new party is not going to respect the government's obligations. What do you think about that?
Well, I think, Sanjeev, what brings down the credibility of our government is when we sell weapons to a country like Saudi Arabia that is using them against their people. There are countries in Europe, our allies in Europe are looking to us. We have other countries that have ended trading with Saudi Arabia. Canada should be a leader in defending human rights. We should be preserving the sanctity of those people there. And there are countries that are looking at us and wondering why Canada is refusing to act. We need to end the deal with Saudi Arabia and protect the human rights in that country.
So what will happen to those companies or industries which are producing weapons here? So they will lose jobs, they will lose business.
There are always investments that can be made. We have I know a lot of areas in Ontario that are producing some of these products, but we need to invest. We can redirect the resources that are used towards these products.
Do you think that it's very easy and quick to redirect those resources? Thousands and thousands of people will be losing jobs.
Just because it's not easy, it doesn't mean it's not worth doing. I think Canadians expect more of our government, even folks that are working in many of these industries. As a country, Canada should not be selling weapons to a country like Saudi Arabia that's using it against their people.
My question is, why even Canada should be selling weapons? Because weapons basically
kills. That's a
kills.
very good question.
Why don't we go for peace, and rather than selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, we should not sell weapons to anyone, and we should actually restructure our industries for some productive areas rather than of destruction.
Sanjeev, you should be running in this election for the NDP because that's exactly something that we're saying. Canada should be supporting peacekeeping efforts. We have a history of being a peacekeeping nation. Other countries around the world know Canada as a people and as a country that supports peacekeeping efforts. But the current Liberal government has continued the track record for the Conservatives for the previous 10 years. They're continuing to sell these arms to these countries that are committing human rights atrocities. Canada should be a peacekeeping country and they shouldn't be selling arms. That's something that we can both agree on.
Jordan, Jagmeet Singh announced 500,000 houses.
Yes. Big announcement.
It's a big announcement.
Yeah.
How can you do that?
Sure. So
you have to need so many different type of people. They should have those skills. It's not just you say it and you can build it.
But it's something that our government's done before. We did it after the Second World War, massive federal investments in building affordable housing, and we did it in the 1970s, where our government stepped up, said we have a housing crisis, and at the federal level we need to make this investment. The Liberals acknowledge that Canada is in the middle of a housing crisis. 2 years ago, the Prime Minister in Toronto announced that Canada has a housing crisis and put their plan forward. But the problem was they withheld funding for 2 years, which won't even roll out until after this upcoming election. So what Jagmeet's saying and what the NDP is saying is that we need to take action today. We can make these federal investments, these federal infrastructure funding announcements where we can build these affordable units. We're in a situation, especially here in Brampton, where people can't even afford to buy a home, but renting is becoming more and more challenging. There are young people that are foregoing the dream of owning a home because the housing market is so unaffordable.
Jordan,
what we're saying is we need to make this announcement.
See, all the announcements NDP is making, I love them.
Me too.
Right? But as an economist, my education is in economics and business. So as an economist, it doesn't make the numbers to match. In a sense, from where all that money will come, all those resources will come. That's my biggest concern. Saying make houses, make a hospital here, or provide all those facilities. We'll talk about pharma care, this care, all that stuff. Beautiful. It's a dream, but it's a dream world. It's not reality.
It can be reality. I have a degree in economics as well, so I know how funding from the government and that revenue stream matters when we talk about these investments. But the NDP has put forward a very clear process to generate more national revenue. A 1% tax on people earning more than $20 million will earn $70 billion over 10 years, a figure that was confirmed by the Parliamentary Budgetary Officer, an independent officer of Parliament. Returning the capital gains tax to the level in 2000, which will generate $3 billion a year. And ending offshore tax havens and CEO stock options, another $1 billion a year. These are all figures that the PBO has confirmed. We've costed it out. They have confirmed our costing. But these are changes that Liberal and Conservative governments have refused to do. If we want to generate this revenue to invest in services and programs people need, we need to make different choices. The NDP and Jagmeet Singh prioritize supporting people, so we will make those choices to get there.
Okay. The next question is Quebec Bill 21. What's your opinion about, and what's NDP's stand on that?
Sure. So we've been very clear that as a province, Quebec is able to pass whatever law they want in their province, and we respect their jurisdiction to do so. But we've also been very quick to call out the divisiveness of Bill 21. It tells people that they don't belong in their community, and tells people that they can't become a teacher or a police officer. It tells people who look like the leader of the party.
Well, NDP is talking about the human rights and the rights of the people, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's India, whether it's this country or that country. But in our own country, you're not going to protect the minorities, that the Quebec government do whatever they want to do. Why did not NDP go to the court and oppose this legislation? That it can, I understand that there are certain jurisdictions with the provinces and certain jurisdictions with the federal. But why can't NDP go to the court and challenge it?
Well, I think that's what we're saying. Whether it's the Superior Court in Quebec or the Supreme Court of Canada, if there is a judicial review of the bill, we would fully support any decision that's made. But we also recognize that it's within the jurisdiction of the province, and that as a federal state...
Jordan, my question is, why don't you be a party to oppose this?
Well, we have been a party that's opposed it on the matter of principle. We've called Bill 21 out as being divisive. We've called it out as telling people that they don't belong in our community. Canada should be inclusive for everybody. Those are the values that I certainly believe in and that our party believes in. So the NDP has been very vocal. On day one, Jagmeet Singh called out Bill 21 for its divisive nature. We've stood shoulder to shoulder with many groups in opposition to the bill, but we also respect the fact that if there is a judicial challenge, that needs to be independent from any political party. So we will continue to use our platform to call out the divisiveness of Bill 21, but at the end of the day, if a court is going to review it, whether it be the Superior Court in Quebec or the Supreme Court of Canada, that needs to be an independent process that no political party is involved in.
Okay. We see that lots of shootings are taking place, whether it's a Brampton, whether it's a GTA, the number of deaths and all that's happening. Okay, criminals, they shoot, they stab, they go to the court, and then they come back in a couple of weeks. Do you think that NDP will go for change of the criminal code so that those lives which are gone, they get justice?
So our leader Jagmeet Singh just 2 days ago announced $100 billion over 5 years, or $100 million, excuse me, $100 million over 5 years for investing in gang prevention and support services for youth. He was out in BC to make this announcement, a major investment to support programs and services that help keep young people out of crime. I was born and raised in Brampton. I've grown up here, and I've seen how our community has changed over the past couple decades, and it has changed. The amount of crime in our communities has definitely increased. But the big problem, or the big reason for that, is we've had governments come in with patchwork and band-aid solutions instead of really investing in the root causes of these issues. $100 million is a massive investment for the federal government. It shows that we're taking leadership on this issue, and we're looking to keep these kids and these young people out of crime and giving them the support services that they need.
Jordan, we have many more questions for you, but we are now going for a break. So we'll come back after the break. प्राइम एशिया टेलीविजन ते प्राइम इलेक्शन प्रोग्राम विच आप जी दा एक बार फिर स्वागत. So we are here with NDP candidate Jordan from Brampton Centre.
Yes.
Okay, now Jordan, some linguistic and religious communities living in Canada from Indian diaspora feel that Jagmeet Singh is anti-India. And this is leading to divisiveness among the communities. There are certain communities, they are going pro to the other parties on the basis of religion, on the basis of the language they speak. So it's causing divisiveness. What can NDP do to make sure that people are not voting on linguistic lines, on religious lines? I hope that you understand my question.
Yeah, of course. And I think on the point of divisiveness, our leader Jagmeet Singh has been very clear that he is trying to bring people together. In everything that he's talking about, whether it's a matter of India or a matter of any domestic policy, he wants to bring people together. That's what the NDP is all about, and that's what Jagmeet Singh is all about as a leader. But in this riding here, very early in the campaign, we saw Mr. Sangha, the Liberal candidate, talk about how the Liberal Party has been pandering to Sikh extremists and painting that entire community in a broad brush. That is the type of divisive language that we need to get out of our politics. Our leaders in Brampton expect more from us. They expect us to be bringing the community together instead of painting an entire community with that broad brush. I was very quick to call out the comments of Mr. Sangha. I think it is wrong to be able to label an entire community in one stroke like that. And on the contrary, Jagmeet Singh and the NDP has been very vocal about bringing communities together and making sure that nobody is left behind.
I understand what you're saying, but even many people, they are painting Jagmeet Singh with the same brush, that he's also pandering to the so-called people who want to divide India. And his comments on, I have a question, he just commented on Kashmir a couple of days back. Are you aware that how many Hindus were in Kashmir 20 years back in 1980, say 20, 30 years back, 1980?
Well, I know on the issue of Kashmir, Jagmeet Singh and the NDP was the first party to put out a statement, a very strong statement about the human rights atrocities going on in Kashmir. And I think to my earlier point, we will continue to defend human rights violations,
no,
whether they
I'm
happen
talking
in
from
Canada.
A different perspective. Let me explain you,
Sure.
Jordan, a little bit more. There are 200,000 people, they left Kashmir and they went to different parts of India, okay? Because of the violence against them. They were forced to leave. Their families were killed and they went to different parts of India. I'm talking about that. I never heard any statement from Jagmeet Singh for the human rights of those people who left Kashmir because members of their families were killed.
Sure, I'm sure if Jagmeet was asked about something that happened in the past, he would be quick to call it out, but he wasn't leader of the party then. He is leader of the party today, and in the current state of Kashmir, the human rights violations happening to the people in Kashmir, he was the first leader to come out with a very strong statement condemning the human rights atrocities going on there. I'm sure if he is asked about previous situations, he's consistent. He's always a defender of human rights. That's something that he has had through his entire career. Even before before entering politics as a human rights lawyer, and as leader of the party, he will continue to defend human rights, whether in Canada or across the world.
Jordan, how NDP and you will work to protect the environment, because that's an important thing
Sure.
for all
Yeah.
our future generations. We need that our future generations should be protected.
The environment is a big issue. That's one of the top issues that I'm hearing at the door, and people are really looking for leadership on climate change. 4 years ago, we heard the Liberals talk a lot about how they were going to be climate leaders. Justin Trudeau himself called himself a climate leader. But then he went out and purchased a pipeline, and he's continuing to subsidize the oil and gas industry. Climate leaders don't act in this way, and people who are serious about tackling climate change make different choices. So what the NDP is putting forward, and what Jagmeet Singh is putting forward, is a bold investment in green technology, in renewable energy, so that Canada can start to turn away from fossil fuels. It's a plan that will create 300,000 jobs across our country, keep people working, but also reduce our carbon emissions. The world is leading the charge, and Canada is falling further and further behind.
Jordan, your party is supporting the carbon tax. Is it right or wrong?
So we are supporting a carbon tax that is more fair. The current system that the Liberal government has put in place lets the biggest polluters in our community off the hook. The largest corporate polluters aren't paying their fair share of the carbon tax, and everyday Canadians are feeling the burden of that.
Do you think that if the NDP comes to the power, will remove the carbon tax from the common people?
Yeah.
Because say, for example, I'm driving car to take my kids to the school, or I'm going to the grocery, or I drive my car to the work. Even if the carbon tax is imposed on me, I'll still be using the car. So it doesn't decrease the emissions. So my question is that sometimes those taxes doesn't affect the emissions. The reason is that marginal propensity to consume is very high. It cannot go down. Even if you increase the prices or taxes people have to use for their necessities.
Canadians are looking for action on climate change, but they're looking for a system that's fair. The current carbon tax that we have isn't fair. It's letting the largest corporate polluters off the hook, but it's showing a pattern of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals continuing to support the biggest corporations in our community while everyday Canadians continue to fall further and further behind. Every decision that they make seems to benefit the wealthiest and the largest corporations in our community, and the rest of people in Canada and right here in our community of Brampton are feeling that. I think Canadians are looking for a fair system that's bold, that's going to tackle the climate crisis, but we're not getting that right now. We have a lot of good words from the Liberals talking about how they're leaders on climate, but there's no action that follows it up. We need a more fair system that applies a tax to the largest corporate polluters in our community, which will generate more revenue, but also reduce our emissions, which is the main goal.
Jordan, NDP don't cite specific numbers asked about the immigrants they would accept. Also, NDP wants to get rid of the Safe Third Country Agreement, which prevents migrants from making claims from US in Canada. Why?
Well, I think Canadians want an immigration system that's compassionate but fair. We've seen the human rights conditions in the United States and have called on our government to allow these migrants an easier access into Canada. These are people fleeing very dangerous situations.
Do you think that US is a very dangerous place where the due process of law is not being respected, do you think?
Well, Sanjeev, I think when we see clips of children being detained in cages, I think that's a dangerous situation.
Well, there may be some incidents, two incidents or few incidents, doesn't make that everything is bad in the United States.
It doesn't, but I think a country like Canada needs to step up. We are a country that defends human rights. We are a welcoming country that supports people. And I think it's our duty as Canadians. It's something that a lot of Canadians pride themselves on, to be a leader in the world on issues like that. What we see happening in the United States.
But if thousands and thousands of people are entering from the United States through our borders, it becomes difficult for our cities to manage everything. And this has actually causing increase in the wait lines for the people whose immigration applications are in process.
I think this is a common misconception. We are not saying that Canada needs to open its borders and have people flood into our country. We are maintaining the strict and the process that people go through when they immigrate to Canada. But what we're saying is that the United States is no longer a safe third country for these people. We need to streamline a process that makes it easier while still respecting the due process and the system that we currently have in place. Because we agree, we cannot allow endless amounts of people at once without going through the necessary checks. But what we're also saying is that we need to be compassionate and we need to support these people in their time of need.
Okay, Jordan, now I have a very different question.
Okay.
And the question is, tell me 3 good things Justin Trudeau did.
Well, one, he said a lot of good things. I think Canadians bought into a lot of what he talked about. During the 2015 election, I think he presented himself as a very charismatic, a very likable, a very progressive leader, and contrasted himself well to Stephen Harper. But there hasn't been that action. So I think he talked a lot of good things, and I think that he presented a lot of good ideas for Canada, but he hasn't followed through on a lot of them, whether it's electoral reform, saying that 2015 would be the last election under first past the post, and then breaking that promise. Whether saying he would end the fossil fuel subsidy and then refuse to do that.
All right, Jordan. We have only left with a minute or so.
Okay.
So I want that you as a candidate, if you want to give any message to the viewers of Prime Minister Television, so the floor is yours.
Sure. Well, first of all, Sanjeev, I just want to thank you for the interview, a very, very good discussion. And my message would be, I'm from our community here in Brampton. I was born and raised here. I went to school right here in our city. And I got involved in politics with Jagmeet Singh back in 2014. I worked on his campaign to become the first racialized leader of a party in Canada, and then became his executive assistant or his PA, and got to travel across our country with him. So I know how much he cares about supporting people and really investing in the services that they need. And I'm hoping to do that here in Brampton Centre. I think our community has been left behind. We've seen what happens when Liberals neglect us, and time and again, we're not getting our fair share, and I'm hoping to be a good voice and fight for our community.
Jordan, thank you very much for coming to the Prime Minister Television studio.
Thank you.
So AC Jordan Boswell, candidate NDP, Brampton Centre. So इन्हां दे विचार तुसीं सुने प्राइम मिनिस्टर टेलीविजन किसी भी पोलीटिकल पार्टी की ना सपोर्ट करता है ना अपोज करता है साडा मकसद है दैट असीं तुहाडे सामने कैंडीडेट्स नूं लैके आइए ताकि वो अपने विचार तुहाडे नाल शेयर कर सकन ते तुसीं एजुकेटेड एंड वैल इनफॉर्म्ड डिसीजनस कर सको सो तुसीं वेख रहे हो प्राइम मिनिस्टर टेलीविजन तुहाडा अपना तुहाडे ਲਈ